I'd like to invite Tánaiste and Gilmore to speak.
It is an honour for all of us to be here today in Dublin Castle for the inaugural meeting of Ireland's first Constitutional Convention. As members of this convention, you have been asked to take on a unique responsibility. A responsibility not only to our fellow men and women, our fellow citizens, but also to the future. A responsibility to the coming generations, so that their country and ours will be a worthy inheritance. The Constitution, Bunreacht na hÉireann, is a document that uniquely reflects our past, governs our present, and is our guiding torch into the future. It is not just the framework for our laws today, it is also an expression of our aspirations as a people. The 1937 Constitution has served us well. It sought to heal the lingering wounds and aftermath of an independence struggle that had been bloody and bitter, while also setting out the architecture of a republic that was democratic and Irish. And by and large, it worked. Ireland is only one of a handful of European countries with a continuous record of democratic government since its foundation. But it is also true to say that the 1937 document reflected the aspirations for our country as they were in the 1930s, a time when one church had a special place, when women were second-class citizens, when homosexuality was a criminal offence. A time when Europe was then on the brink of its second war in a generation, rather than, as now, closer integration. We have seen, too, how our Constitution has not always served the citizens of our country as well as it should, in particular the nation's children. And the recent amendments on children's rights will, I hope, remedy that omission. And we might also ask ourselves whether better safeguards for better governance could have protected our state, which found itself among the most vulnerable when the global financial crisis hit in 2008. The idea for a citizens' convention to examine our Constitution came against the backdrop of the most profound crisis our country had ever faced. Caught in a perfect storm, where a world crisis, a European crisis and a domestic crisis met, the very viability of our independent state was in question. Confidence in our institutions, in government, the banking system, and in recent years, the churches, had been shaken to its core. It was, as Professor Brian Farrell has observed of De Valera's 1930s, a dangerous time for democracy. Then as now, our democracy depends on our collective faith in it, on our confidence that it is relevant to our daily lives and that it reflects the beliefs, the hopes, and the values of our people. When this government took office in February of last year, we did so with a strong mandate to reform our politics, our parliament, and our public services. We've made some progress. The rules about political donations have been changed to break the link between big money and politics, and in future, public funding for political parties will be dependent on their candidates in a general election having at least 40% women. This Dáil sits more frequently. TDs have much greater opportunity to raise important issues of the day, and the government will be introducing legislation to allow for Dáil committees to conduct investigations into matters of public interest. Newly created Department of Public Expenditure and Reform is undertaking the most far-reaching reform of our public service to date. But democracy is not just about government. It is about each of us as citizens, as voters, taking responsibility for our future. That, at its core, is what this Constitutional Convention is about. To take a considered view of the rules that bind us, to ask ourselves whether they reflect who we are now, whether they reflect the kind of country that we want to hand on to our children. A country that is compassionate, fair and tolerant. A country whose democracy brings out the best in us as a people. A country that embodies the ideals of a republic, that each of us has equal rights as individuals, but that we also have a collective obligation to each other. And it is through that obligation to each other we achieve far more than acting alone. You are coming together as individuals, as elected representatives from North and South. You will be bringing your personal judgment, your particular life experience and your values to questions of political reform and to social reform, to questions as diverse as electoral reform, the right to vote for immigrants, the role of women and same-sex marriage. But you are being asked not to decide what is the best path forward for you personally. You are being asked to make a judgment on what is best for our country, for us together as a community and for the coming generations. Not change for change's sake, but neither to be fearful of questioning our Constitution and the role of the state in our lives. I want to thank you, all of you who have agreed to participate in this convention, and I want to thank especially the chairperson, Tom Arnold, for agreeing to undertake the work of chairing this important convention. Tá aber an táhachtach le déanamh agaibh. Aber a bhaineann leis an tír seo amach an seo. Tá súlagam go nairóí libh agus tugadh mé an galahain seo díobh. Éin mulla a hagan an convention seo. Ba sé idir lámh ag an rialtas láithreach agus déanamuid ar neagna agus ar cinenne ar na moltaí sin láithreach agus choirimid os cóir an phobal iad Moscow. Gur mína maithagé as a méid atá le amach